And there is absolutely no one better for you to partner with than our own superstar, super stud muffin. I'm going to give all these accolades, throw them on in there. Somebody that has dedicated his life and career to doing this exact type of thing. It's helping people and blessing their lives, and so it's our
Mr.
good friend,
Stevie
Mr. Mark
Jones,
McDonald.
thanks so much for that intro as always, and thanks for co-hosting these with me and being the intro, the close, and just that great energy throughout. Love you, Stevie. Now, everybody, welcome to week 6. Now, Steve shared we have some special ones today, and as I talked about last week, is we're looking at managing your stress. But before we move into it, I do want to just go back to the core challenge kit here. The important thing to understand is, I had someone come up to me and said, $2.99, that's expensive. And I said, really? I get $2.99 for 8 weeks for products is expensive? I said, yeah. So let's talk about this. So I'm a coach. I've built multiple nutrition practices. We literally have over 550 Venice nutrition practices nationwide now. And if someone's doing an 8-week plan with me, my minimum coaching rate when I was full-time coaching was $1,500 with just coaching, just for the information, not the products. All of our practices, when they're doing 8-week challenges, people are paying for the coaching anywhere from $400 to $600. If you go to a Weight Watchers or a Jenny Craig, which are diets that teach a whole different philosophy of what we are, you're paying for the information and the coaching, and then the products on top of it. What makes this so powerful, why we're getting so much fire, and I've been on the road, I've done 4 weekends in 6 weeks, and whether it was St. Louis, whether it was Orlando this past week, whether it was Connecticut, whether it was Texas, the reality is that you get free coaching, an entire information and plan, access to webinars, leading you every step of the way, and the only investment is the products. And what's even better is that the products that you're purchasing, they're more effective and less expensive than if you went to a vitamin store to get the same thing. When we talk about the detox, the cleanse, the burn, the ProBio, that's the power of that. So I always look at when someone talks about finances, and that's not the topic of the webinar tonight, but I just want you to know of the value add of what's going on. Then when you start saying, okay, I hear you, Mark, the next thing you look at, and I talked about this in Orlando, a lot of times, people struggle with the belief that it's possible. And that's why every webinar, what I want to do is do a success story. And I have some great pictures for you. Yesterday on my HLN weekly show, Get It Back in Gear Mondays, national media, we featured Michelle and Scott Totten. Now what's cool about Michelle's little extra thing is that she had her 3rd child in November, still breastfeeding. So there's only a certain amount of product she can take, but her aspect is what she focused on, and she was losing the weight this time was a little bit more challenging. But in 8 weeks, on the 8-week plan, she dropped 28 pounds and 23 inches. And not only did she do it for herself, you see Scott there dropped his baby weight as well. Now I know obviously, men, we don't carry that. We're not carrying the baby, but most men put on some baby weight as well. I know Stevie Jones did. I put on my baby weight after Hunter was born. That's what my next book's about. I'll talk about that later. But Scott, he lost 31 pounds and 17 inches. That's the power of what it is. And I was at Orlando this past weekend, and we said everyone who's gotten results walk across the stage. Literally 3/4 of the room walked across the stage sharing their weight, their progress, whether they need to lose weight, build muscle, increase their energy, lower their stress, all of these things, because to really understand, you got to believe it's possible. So when I look at the tools, the information available, and then you see on headline news, national media, featuring Michelle and Scott's story, and I posted that this morning on the Core Challenge Facebook group. So if you haven't seen the interview, check it out, share it with people, because there's so many ladies out there who are struggling to drop that baby weight, and Michelle's a phenomenal example right there, and then Scott as well for all the husbands. Now, in addition, Michelle texted me last night, and she was at one of her child's sporting events. She said all the moms are talking about how lean she's getting. So by her leading by example, by remembering that the transformation starts with her, she's enrolling people after people into this plan, because people want to see it. They want to feel what she's experiencing. So remember that as you live your transformation, as it starts with you, my goal and all of the whole core community's goal is to share your success with others, because your success shows them that it's possible. So this week, our inspiration of the week is Michelle and Scott Todd, and they are rocking the plan. And not only did they do it together, they included their kids as well as their community, and they're leading by example. So hats off, standing ovation to both of them. Now, focus this week. You know, we've been rocking. We've done the detox plan, Ignite. You learned how to eat in restaurants and grocery shop, how to diversify your exercise. Last week, we talked about sleep. Now to this week's the X Factor. You know, all of those things could be working great for you. But if your stress is not in check, you might have some challenges. You know, a big shout out to Abby Atkinson. She does all the cool little photos in these slides, and I love her little photos of the lady looking at the dessert, because the visuals make a difference. But why does stress matter? And you know, that's the goal here. How do you minimize your stress? And before we dive in, I want everyone to get a pen out, or if you're on your phone or whatever it is, write this down. I want you to rate your level of stress right now. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Okay, so give it a rate. What is your stress level right now? Now, once you know that, ideally the goal, as we all know, is to minimize our stress. So this week, your theme is going to be stress. You still keep doing everything that you're doing, but now what we have to look at is how do we take our stress to a better level, improve it. So if you're right now, let's say your stress is a number 6, and 10 being the highest, that's the worst. And 1, you want to go backwards on this. You want to lower stress. So maybe this week's your goal is to make it a 5. So I want you to look at where do you want to take your stress this week, and where do you want to take it next week and the week after. I want you to start putting some targets. On my MacBook Pro, I have an arrow, like a target with an arrow right in the center, because I always know where I'm going. I want to make sure that I'm focused and I'm clear in my direction, clear on my path. And that's where I want you to be right now with your stress. Analyze where you are, and then put a weekly goal of how you're going to make it better. And what I'm going to share tonight are some strategies on how you do it. But before I share the strategies, you got to understand why minimizing your stress matters so much. So now you know where you want to go. Let's look at this. So we know that stress can affect your weight. It's going to cause that belly fat that we don't want. We've heard that before. Most of you have heard that. But why is that? Now, look at what stress is. And stress overall is a necessary thing for your body. So let's look at the definition. Stress is defined as the natural physical response to events that make you feel threatened or upset, whether real or imagined. So that's just the reality of stress. It's your body's safety mechanism. See, your body's designed, as you look at the little graphic there, if you're being chased by an elephant or you're about to get hit by a car, it's fight or flight. And your body puts it in a way where it allows you to react in a positive way to accomplish the task at hand. The problem, though, is that there can be a negative reaction to it. So when your stress is out of balance, you can't metabolize your food. You store unwanted belly fat. Now, that's why a lot of times you'll hear me say it's not what you eat, it's what you metabolize. That's why stress is your X factor. Now, this is how physiologically your body works with stress. So you have adrenal glands. I want everyone to look at their cell phone right now. Look at your cell phone. There's a battery in there. You put electricity in that. You plug it in. It recharges its battery, drains again, and then you recharge it again. Well, as I shared last week, sleep recharges your body's adrenal glands. So your adrenal glands, your battery, sleep recharges it. Well, your adrenal glands also produce 2 main hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Adrenaline, when you do that burn, that causes a little bit of an increase of adrenaline to help you burn fat. And adrenaline's that explosion hormone, that whew. Cortisol does the same thing. And what happens when you're in a state of fight or flight, or when you're stressed, your body over-releases both hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Now, this is good for you. Like if you're being chased from that elephant, it's going to allow you to have those short bursts of energy, increased memory function, decreased sensitivity to pain, increased immunity. So in essence, your body's response to stress is preparing you for battle. I want you to think about that right now, and just know that stress is a good thing because it's preparing your body for battle. Think of a moment where you've stressed before and things just seem clearer, like you're in the thick of it. I had a client, and she would not eat all day. And she would say, Mark, I'm never hungry. She was in the thick of it every single day at work. And she would be at a high level of stress, and she would function, she'd function. But when you had that high level, there's a cost to it. So she would be at a high level, then the day would end, and it'd be like, like the weight was off her shoulders. And the floodgates would open up, and she would want to eat, and she would want to drink, and all these things because she was not in balance. Has that ever happened to you? So the important thing is know this. Stress is a good thing. It's important for your body. It's just understanding, like with everything, how to balance it out. And what you have to start looking at is where you are right now. If you feel like you're over your stress point, like you're not managing it well, we got to lower that. We got to start bringing it back down, because this is what happens. There's two types of stresses. There's acute and chronic. Now that example I shared, that if a car is about to hit you and you jump out of there, that's acute. Your body over-releases adrenaline, cortisol. There's a moment of excitement followed by a moment of recovery. We had talked about making your 8-week run, like you're progressing, you're going for it, and then you need to recover because it's a spike in recovery. It happens, and that's okay at times. And acute stress, that's what it is. It's a moment of coming up, moment of coming down. Now, ideally, you want to learn how to minimize those acute moments so that you only leverage your stress mechanism when you really need to. Like if you're going to be hit by a car, or you have a massive deadline that you have to hit, just little moments. Chronic stress is where most people have challenges. Chronic stress is this. That client I talked about, when she would not eat all day and she was in that chronic state of stress, what happens is that every time she was at that place, she's over-releasing cortisol and adrenaline. Now, as I shared, acute stress is your body goes up and it comes down. If you're chronic, because you're not having enough moments of relaxation, your cortisol level stays in your blood. The moment your cortisol level stays in your blood, you're chronic stress, and you're close to adrenal failure. It's almost impossible to lose weight. You have unwanted belly fat. So I've had countless people come to me and say, Mark, look, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, my sleep is improving, but I can't drop weight, I can't feel better. It's because they're not managing their stress. See, it's a domino effect. Everything's got to work together. So acute stress is short-term stress. We're going to focus on how to manage that. When you go chronic, you're in trouble. So now that you know stress, you know the jives, now we got to look at, okay, well, what are those things that happen with chronic stress? I love these pictures here. Weakened immune system. So when you have those fight or flight, you protect your immune system, but the moment you recover, guess what happens? Your immune system's weakened. That's why a lot of times you could be in a good place. Like, let's say you have a deadline and you go for it for a week and you're working, your stress level's high, and then all of a sudden the deadlines pass. You're like, whew, you take a breath. Next day you're sick. You went from a state of protected immune system because your body's natural response to survive, to battle, to now a weakened immune system. See, that's what happens when you have the big stress moment followed by the recovery. Headaches, depression, anxiety, digestive challenges. I've worked with so many people with Crohn's disease, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome. Basically, this is what happens with your digestive tract. When you're in a balanced state, you have proper enzymes and acids. So your digestive system, there's two parts. You have mechanical digestion, and everyone touch your teeth. Your teeth, your smooth muscle in your esophagus, your stomach, visualize that. Your intestinal tract, that's smooth muscle. You don't control that, but it allows your body to make your food to be mechanically broken down into its simplest form. Then you have a chemical form of digestion, which is your acids and your enzymes that break your protein, fats, and carbs to their simplest form. When you're at an elevated level of stress, what ends up happening is your mechanical digestion, your smooth muscle, either constricts or relaxes more, and your enzymes are inhibited that help break down your food, and your acids are increased. So that's why a lot of people with digestive challenges, when they're in a state of calmness, they don't have any digestive challenges. But then when they're stressed, they're not working for them. It's a simple thing of how their body's being functioned. So these are all things that happens when it's chronic. So now you know what stress is. You understand the negative of acute and chronic. But now let's look at how can you do things that can help manage it. So I want you to look at the number that you put of where your stress is right now. Let's say right now you're a 7. Put 7 and 10 being the worst. So 7 is pretty challenging, and that means that you're having a hard time controlling it. And let's say by the end of the week you want to be at a 6, and then you want to work your way down. Ideally, you want to be a 4 or lower, and the lower you can be, the better. Now, stress overall is just, a lot of times if you have an edge to you, I have an edge to me. I have to learn how to manage it. So the first thing is you got to become aware of your stress triggers. This is the hardest thing, is that I would talk to clients, and they would look at me, and I'd say, hey, you're struggling a bit. Are you okay? My client, her name was Veronica. She said, I'm good. So you look a little stressed. And what I realized is that when you tell someone they look stressed, they don't like that. She said, I'm not stressed. I said, okay, well, let's do this. I'd like you to write down every single time that you have a bit of a moment of stress. Maybe you're late for a meeting, you're stuck in traffic, anything that's triggering that moment. Your kids won't tie their shoes, they're not listening to you, anything that's going to cause you to have that bit of an elevation of stress. We know that feeling. And she said, okay. And when she came back the next day, she had 122 moments of those. Now, when we talk about acute and chronic stress, that becomes a big problem. Because every single time that comes up and comes down, your body doesn't have a time to relax. She was in a state of chronic stress. She wasn't even aware of it. So right now in the webinar, you might have rated yourself a 4. And by tomorrow or the next day when you do your stress journal, you're not even going to, now you're going to say, wait a second, I'm not a 4, I'm a 5 or a 6. Or maybe you rated yourself a 7 and you find out that you're a 4. The reality is that you got to start a stress journal, and you have to start writing down these moments of when you stress, not forever, but for the moment. And then once you become aware of the trigger, now you can create a solution. Now I want to share, look, there's 2 types when we look at your stress triggers. If there's a death in the family, a divorce, moving, certain things that are just like big time stressors, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the daily ones that you can control, that you can control your reaction to. Moments where you say, man, I could have handled that better. Man, why am I getting upset? These are the moments where you can handle it. So you got to start the stress journal. That's going to create the awareness, and then you got to create solutions. Perfect example is this. Let's say I'm stuck late for a meeting. Oh, well, I'm running late for a meeting. I'm stuck in traffic. Happened 3 weeks ago in headline news. There was a bad accident, national media. I'm saying, man, I need to get makeup on. I'm running late, and as my hit time was coming, I might miss my show. And then what ended up happening, I said, okay, I started having an elevated stress. I said, okay, well, let's go through this. Let's create a solution. I said, okay, worst case, I'm a little late. I don't put on my makeup. It's live TV, so that's a problem. So I said, okay, I won't put makeup. I won't go to makeup. That will save me some time. I'll call the executive producer now. We'll talk on the phone while I'm stuck in traffic. And then that should give me enough time. And then the worst case for me was I miss my hit. And then I come back the next day and that's the worst case. So with me, my solution is I go down the checklist in my head to help alleviate my stress. And then I always look at what's the worst case. Now, if the worst case isn't acceptable, then I have to create another solution. But the reality is this, you got to create solutions. And then my next time, I leave a little earlier. I said, okay, well, how do I prevent this from ever happening again? I check the traffic report before I leave next time. These are little things that you can do. These are little things that you can focus on. If you're running late for a meeting, you can simply say, what can I do next time to prevent that? See, so not only in the moment can you help minimize the stress to put yourself on what's the worst thing that can happen, your real solution is how do you prevent that same scenario from happening again? So many times people don't have their mobile readiness food kit, and they have low blood sugar, and they skip a meal, and that triggers them to have stress just there alone. So the response is, what can you do next time to prevent that? Always plan one meal ahead. Have a bar with you, have a shake with you, have a core shake with you. Have something available that's going to allow you to create that solution. So that's really the first 3. You got to start a stress journal, you got to become aware of your triggers, and then you need to create a solution. Then these are some of the little tips that you can do. Caffeine and processed food. Why do we have the detox and ignite food? Why do you take off all this? Why do you take off processed food? Because processed food doesn't digest as well. Processed food doesn't make your circulation flow as well. Processed food can spike your blood sugar. That irregular blood sugar can directly affect how you handle stress. Caffeine. We love the burn capsule because it doesn't cause that jittery that a lot of caffeine can when it's not a green tea extract aspect. Caffeine can cause elevated heart rate and make you more on edge, so you want to be cautious with that. Once we look at you becoming aware of it, now you still need some downtime. See, when I talked about my client who at the end of the day needs a break, needs an escape, escapes are good because you can't run all the time. I look at the day like this. I have a warm-up. I wake up. I have a warm-up to get ready for the day. I take the day on, and then poof, I'm full throttle, just like I'm playing a match as an athlete. And then I have a cool down. And cool down is enjoy some self-time with myself. Maybe I'm listening to iTunes. Maybe I'm watching a movie. Maybe I'm stretching, which is great for you. Maybe you love meditation and yoga. And then you repeat these things that give you that escape. Now, the other thing when I talk about from a stress side and a relaxation side is what we forget about, and I did this on Headline News, in your work environment. I call it your Zen moments. Imagine every couple hours throughout the day, you put on your favorite song, you bust out a stretch, and you have your Zen moment. It will shift how your day is going. You just try that. I invite you to try that. 3 to 5 times a day, every couple hours, you take a Zen moment. And then that will help minimize your stress and allow you to be clear to take on the day. These are your strategies. So just a quick recap. You understand why stress isn't good for you. You understand what adjustments to make. Now, your task this week, you're looking at where you are and where you want to go. Start a stress journal so you become aware. That's going to create awareness to what those triggers are. Create solutions for each trigger. Then start looking at maybe you limit your intake of caffeine, which you're in the ignite phase anyway, so that's good. Limit processed food, which you're already doing in the ignite phase. Then look at your escape. At the end of the day, how do you get some escape time? What is that to you? I like to play ping pong with Hunter. I like to go for a walk with Abby and the kids. I like to go to Sky Zone. I like to watch movies, read. These are things. So find your self-time. Meditate and yoga if you want. Stretch. And all you need to do to get sharper and sharper and go from a 7 to a 6 to a 4 through a 3 to a 2 to a 1 is to repeat it, and repeat it. And make sure throughout the day you take on your Zen moments. That's how you do it. So we are rocking this. I want to remind you of Michelle and Scott Totten, leading by example just like you. I want to recap or end with the story I shared in Orlando about my mother-in-law, who was amazing, Andrea, Abby's mom, her fiance, Richard. He sat at my kitchen table a couple weeks ago, struggling with his health. Type 2 diabetic, 70 pounds overweight, and for literally an hour, he complained and complained and complained about his joints, about his inflammation, about how his body's not working, about how he used to be a basketball referee, how all these things he used to do. He used to be this, used to be that. And I simply asked him, I said, Richard, you know this is possible. I've showed you how people are doing it. You know I'm national ambassador for the American Diabetes Association. You know this works. So it's there. And I said, we have a plan that proves it. The only thing in your way right now is you got to choose to take action. And he said, oh, I know, and excuse after excuse. And I said, Richard, if you weren't, he's not officially family, he's Andrea's fiance. So I said, if you weren't Andrea's fiance, we wouldn't be having this conversation because you're not ready. You don't want to take action. And that's what I applaud each of you. Is you want to and you are taking action. We can't help everybody, but what we can do is lead by example. And when Andrea came to me before she left, she said, Mark, what should I do? Because I'm worried about him. I said, you know what you can do, Mom, is you can lead by example. And what I guarantee you is as you lead by example, eventually he will slowly put it together. And that's my invitation to each of you. as you're living this, as you're doing it, you lead by example, just like Michelle Totten did. You know how much hope she gave yesterday by being featured on headline news to so many women who are stuck at their baby weight that they can't lose and they don't know what to do and they're frustrated. Her success by leading by example has inspired so many, just like yours. There's a lot of people like Richard around this country. There's a lot of people that want to change and they're open to it, but where they're stuck is they don't want to take action, because in essence they know it's possible, they know the plan works, but they don't think it's going to work for them. And the way you get them in the game is you lead by example. And this is how we inspire people to be their very best. The transformation always starts with you. Week 6, own it. Love it. Dive into the Core Challenge community. Make sure you post on Facebook, and we're going to continue to have fun and ask your questions with the Q&A. Back to you, Mr. Stevie Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mark Studmuffin McDonald. I loved what you said about stress, and one of